Tonight you will eat something soft, something cooked, something that barely resembles the plant or animal it came from. You won't think twice about it, but for most of the time humans have existed, that meal would have been almost unrecognizable to you. The real answer to what ancient humans ate is far stranger than steak and berries around a campfire. You have probably heard the story, caveman hunts mammoth, caveman eats meat. Simple, primal, done. That story is comforting. It is also mostly wrong. For millions of years, your ancestors were not apex predators sitting down to a protein feast every night. They were opportunists, scavengers, foragers who ate whatever the land gave them, and the land rarely gave them meat. Anthropologist Catherine Milton spent decades studying primate diets in the wild, and her research on early hominins suggests something uncomfortable. Meat was a luxury item. Most calories came from plants, roots, and insects. Lots and lots of insects. Why does that surprise you? Because the story you were told left them out. Termites, grubs, and larvae were not a punishment food. They were a reliable, fat-rich, protein-packed staple. Chimpanzees, your closest living relatives, still fish termites out of mounds with sticks today. Your ancestors likely did something similar for millions of years before anyone picked up a spear. Insects do not fossilize well. Bones do, so the fossil record quietly overrepresents meat and underrepresents the food that was actually easiest to get. Here is where it gets stranger. Around 2 million years ago, something changed inside your ancestors' skulls. Brains started growing fast, and growing a brain is expensive. Your brain today burns roughly 20% of your daily calories, even though it is only about 2% of your body weight. An early hominin surviving on raw plants alone could not have powered that kind of growth. Raw food takes enormous energy just to digest. So what changed? Primatologist Richard Wrangham has spent his career arguing for one answer: fire, specifically cooking. His research proposes that once your ancestors began cooking food, digestion became dramatically easier. Cooked starch breaks down faster. Cooked meat yields more usable protein. The gut no longer had to work as hard, which meant more energy was suddenly available. Available for something else. Available for a growing brain. Think about that for a second. The thing sizzling over a fire hundreds of thousands of years ago may be the reason you are capable of reading these words and understanding them right now. But cooking did not start with meat either. Long before your ancestors were reliably hunting large game, they were almost certainly cooking starchy plants. Roots, tubers, underground storage structures that plants use to survive drought and winter. These were abundant, they were calorie-dense, and unlike a herd of animals, they did not run away. Researcher Amanda Henry examined dental plaque from Neanderthal fossils, the hardened residue that builds up on teeth over a lifetime. Trapped inside that ancient plaque, she found microscopic starch granules, cooked starch granules, from plants like barley and date palms. This was not supposed to exist in the meat-eating caveman story. Neanderthals, often portrayed as brutish hunters, were grinding, cooking, and eating plants as a real part of their diet. So why does the meat-heavy myth persist? Partly because meat leaves dramatic evidence. Butchered bones with cut marks tell a vivid story that is easy to photograph and easy to sell. A pile of ancient starch residue does not make for a striking museum display. But absence of drama is not absence of truth. The archaeological record has a bias, and for a long time science followed that bias instead of questioning it. Now here is the part that should really unsettle you. There was no single ancient human diet, not one. A group living near a coastline 200,000 years ago was eating shellfish, fish, and seaweed. A group living on an open savanna was eating tubers, seeds, and the occasional scavenged carcass. A group in a dense forest was eating fruit, nuts, and yes, plenty of insects. Diet was not fixed. It was radically, relentlessly local. Your ancestors ate whatever their specific environment made possible, and that environment could look completely different depending on where they happened to be born. This matters because of what it reveals about you. Humans did not survive by eating one perfect diet. Humans survived by being flexible enough to eat almost anything. That flexibility is arguably one of the most important adaptations in your entire evolutionary history. Not sharp claws, not powerful jaws, the ability to adjust. Which brings up an uncomfortable question. If there was no single ideal ancestral diet, what exactly are modern diet trends promising to recreate? Many popular paleo-style diets picture a narrow slice of prehistory, heavy on meat, light on grains, frozen in time like a single postcard. But your ancestors were not eating one postcard. They were eating thousands of different postcards across hundreds of thousands of years and dozens of environments. The real ancestral pattern was never a specific menu. It was adaptability itself. There is another twist worth sitting with. Cooking did not just change digestion, it likely changed your face. Chewing tough raw food for hours a day requires large jaw muscles, heavy jaw bones, and big teeth to support them. Once cooking softened food and made it easier to break down, some researchers argue that the pressure to maintain those massive chewing structures relaxed. Over generations, jaws and teeth could afford to shrink. A smaller jaw left more room for something else nearby. A growing skull. So the fire that cooked your ancestors' dinner may have quietly helped reshape their skulls. None of this happened quickly. It happened across an almost unimaginable stretch of time, generation after generation, small shift after small shift, until one day, a species existed that could plant crops, herd animals, and eventually stock a refrigerator. Agriculture, when it finally arrived around 12,000 years ago, was not the beginning of human eating. It was simply the latest chapter in a very long, very messy story of adaptation. Now think about your own plate. Tonight, when you eat something soft, something cooked, something that barely resembles the plant or animal it came from, you are not doing something new. You are doing something that started with a fire, a handful of scavenged roots, and a species that learned slowly and unevenly how to make the most of whatever the world happened to offer it.